Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Stack Banks. You're now tuned into the Millionaire Millennial. Today, we are actually continuing our Founders series. We had started it about 2 years ago and taken a brief break. But we are here today with Proto Hologram's CEO and founder, David Nussbaum. I'm assuming that's how I pronounce that, correct?
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yep.
Do you prefer founder? Do you prefer CEO?
I'm just happy to have a job here. So
Okay.
I'll take either one. No, this is a dream come true. You know, in any parallel universe, I'm just lucky to have a job at this place. So this is the most amazing company I've ever worked for. And it's honestly, it's a dream come true that I get to even work here.
Yeah, and please, I've got a little blurb of the company pulled up, and we could really talk about it. For those of my listeners and viewers who don't understand, this is perfect that we've got live video here, because we've got the Proto Hologram, you guys call it Beam, or is it called the Proto, or is it just you call it Hologram? When
I mean, Proto Hologram is the name of the company. This is the Proto Epic behind me, with a hologram of Howie inside of it. And, Howie's great because this is the closest he'll ever let me get to him without touching. So, no, it's wonderful.
That's awesome. So I talked to you a little bit before we got into it, and actually started recording, but David understands, for my viewers, this is going to be a little bit focused on David's personal journey, what brought him here, what led you as an inventor and a founder. And I know, at least listed on your guys' website, you have a co-founder, Doug Barry, as well. And if you wanted to shout him out, we could. Maybe we could
Doug, Doug and Ed. We've got my CTO is Ed Guinness, Chief Operating Officer is Doug Barry, and incredible partners to have.
Awesome. So maybe that's even a point to start. Well, maybe with you personally. So I'm not familiar necessarily with your personal background. Where are you from, and what led you basically on your journey? If you could, give us the nutshell of who you are and where you come from.
Totally. Yeah. One of my first memories was wanting to be on the radio. I remember being in my dad's car growing up, listening to the radio. And to me, that was everything. It's been my lifelong passion and dream to either be a broadcaster or work for a radio station. So in the late 90s, I moved to Los Angeles and I made that dream come true. So I started working for a bunch of different radio stations over the years. Over the last 25 years, I worked with CBS Radio and a number of independent radio stations. And to me, the idea of broadcasting and communications it's our greatest superpower. It's something that separates us from all of the other, life forms here on Earth. Sure. We've built these kind of portals that were used to, you speak a word into a microphone and then somebody hears it on the other side. And I always got really interested in the idea of broadcasting and communications and truly connecting with people. So over the years, working at different radio stations, founding a podcast company and even hosting a podcast of my own for 5 years, every Saturday for 5 years.
What was
the
name
greatest? It was called Decently Funny.
Okay.
And it was one of the first podcasts. I started it in 2008. Wow. So long before the podcast boom. Now I'm the only one who doesn't have a podcast, but I was one of the first, and I met my wife on my podcast. I met people that I'm still friendly with today, and it was just a great way to introduce myself to people. Hi, I'm David Nussbaum. I have a podcast. How would you like to come up to my living room? We could talk about your life. And celebrities, comedians, television writers, reality stars, and that was a lot of fun for me.
So you knew early on the power of media and outreach to others.
Yeah, well, because it's marketing, it's advertising, it's marketing. This is a platform. This is your. This is a way, if you can generate an audience, and if you have something really interesting to say, if you have something entertaining or informative, if you can cultivate an audience and keep them there long enough, you can really generate revenue, but you can also create something that's inspirational and interactive. And that's, for me, that's what broadcasting and podcasting was always.
Amazing. You mentioned you moved to LA. Where from, if you don't mind me asking?
I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up down the shore. I used to run the
Jersey Shore.
The Jersey Shore. Yeah. I used to run all the rides on the Jersey Shore growing up in high school. And that was a lot of fun. One of the first things I ever did, I remember being in high school, like sophomore or junior year in high school. I was on my way to school and I switched the channel over to 92.3 FM and the Howard Stern show came on. And I was like, what is this show? Because I'd never heard anything like that before. I'd been listening to just DJs kind of talking about the music and maybe having like, maybe 2 or 3 minutes of conversation in between songs. But all of a sudden, here was this guy talking the way we all talk and saying things that we wish we could say. And he was saying it and he was generating millions of audience listeners doing it. I remember being probably 30 or 40 minutes late to school the first day that I ever heard the Howard Stern show. And that's when I knew, wait a second. So this is I can actually work in the business. I want this to be my career. Yeah. And it was the Howard Stern show and several other broadcasters like David Letterman and even watching Saturday Night Live as a kid, like seeing these people kind of create these worlds in which they want to live in. And they said, this is the world that I want to create. And then they do it, they manifest it and they make it a real thing.
That's amazing. I agree. Yeah. I mean, that's, and not to try and date you or myself, but I'm 35. I believe you're a little bit older than I am, especially
tiny bit.
Yeah, growing up listening to Howard Stern. But this is the Millionaire Millennial, and so maybe some of our audience doesn't even know what that is, and to maybe refresh their minds. That at one point was the biggest thing out was radio and or television, and now to be able to sort of merge the two and everyone's their own broadcast network, and then what you do and the company that you have enabling that and pushing that into the future. Yeah. I'm excited to see where this goes when I don't need this setup to talk to you. And I guess we're in that day and age now, and I'm obviously very new to what you're doing, but I think that's amazing. You had mentioned being a podcaster, and that was something that I had wanted to touch on for just a brief moment. Because I'm assuming how you had talked about meeting celebrities and comedians and people of that nature, essentially talent. At what point did you realize that, I need to stop doing this and I need to start doing what you're doing now? Because I'm sure you experienced some measure of success doing that. So how do you leave something that's already got traction to go completely left field?
Well, I ran out of time. My day was filled up with, I was running a live entertainment company where we actually started the world's first hologram entertainment company. In 2012, a gentleman named Tupac Shakur digitally rose from the stage at Coachella, which for me, as a lover of broadcasting, as a lover of communications and connecting with people, I thought, whoa, something really amazing is happening here. So I ended up tracking down the guys who owned the patent, which was famously used to put Tupac on stage. And I thought, well, what if I can make a business out of this? So that's what we did. For about 3 or 4 years, we bought that patent, and then we just started bringing late legends back to posthumously perform in front of sold out audiences around the world. So all of a sudden now I was talking, my day got really busy and I just ran out of time. Plus I had a bunch of kids. So
we'll touch on that. We'll touch on that later on too, because that's something that we do want to talk about. Especially you being a CEO and a founder, and how do you have a work-life balance and all those things, but we'll get there. So awesome. So that's, what you had mentioned, the Tupac hologram and getting a hold of those guys and having that be the business model. I'm assuming when you first did that, you had no clue that you were going to end up down the route that you are now doing what you're doing now, right? So what did that evolution look like to get from that to where you are now?
Well, bringing back the dead was never something that I truly loved. It was always about connecting the living. Like, as being broadcasters, that's all I've ever really been interested in. But seeing something brand new, seeing something so unique and disruptive. It got me really excited. So I started bringing back dead musicians, but I continued my desire to connect folks. So one of the first things I did with this new technology, which is not this, this is the old stuff. I'm talking about the old technology. It's called Pepper's Ghost. It's it's a big magic trick now, but
that was the first iteration, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like if you go to Universal Studios and you go to the Harry Potter ride, or if you go to the Fast and the Furious Supercharged tram tour, or if you go to the Magic Castle at Disney, Pepper's Ghost is an illusion, mirrors and reflections and projectors and LEDs, and it creates the effect of a person really there when they're not really there. But it really, you're talking about literally tons of pounds of truss structure and scrims, and it's very expensive to do. Hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars.
Right. You said Disney and Universal Studios put on those type of productions now.
You either had to be Elvis or Michael Jackson, or you had to be like a legend who that you could sell tickets to in order to afford to be able to do this, or you had to be Universal Studios or Disney in order to license our technology. And then sell tickets. There was only really one way to monetize it, and that's by selling tickets. Not the most scalable business for me. And so I reached out to some friends I had, former podcast producer I knew who was currently working for the Jimmy Kimmel Live show. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I've got my hands on this new hologram technology. What if we beamed Jimmy from while he's doing his opening monologue? What if I beamed him to, this street at Times Square, and he could just mess with people? And ultimately what they ended up landing on was we were going to beam Jimmy to the Country Music Awards in Nashville while he was doing a show. And then we started beaming artists back as they were winning awards, and we were beaming people places using this Tupac hologram technology. And I got really excited by that, because all of a sudden now we're broadcasting. Now, for me, this is just the evolution of broadcasting. I'm not talking into a microphone on the radio. I'm not looking into a television camera. I'm now beaming my true presence. I'm beaming myself. I'm now broadcasting my entire being, and all of the light switches went on. All the light bulbs went off. So I knew this was the future.
Yeah, you knew it was an instant win once you got to that point.
Well, I knew that it was exciting, and I knew that it was revolutionary and innovative. But now I had to try to figure out, how am I going to do this?
Right.
It costs a lot of money to start. Certainly wasn't going to use that technology. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars just to build one device. So how do I scale it? How do I shrink it down? How do I make it completely self-contained? How do I make it mobile and user-friendly? And so it took a little while and a lot of money. And then I made Proto.
So, and that's, I'm sure you said a long time. How long was that journey exactly from that to where you have a device that you're actually putting into consumers' hands?
It was years. So I think, 2018 and 2019 and 2020 were pretty pivotal. It's when I left the old company, came up with the idea for the new one, drew sort of my thoughts on what I wanted the design of the display to look like on the back of a cocktail napkin. And it was, and this doesn't look anything like it, by the way. My designs didn't work. Did not work.
That's one of my questions I actually have, was business plan, and what was it? Were you the cocktail napkin guy, or were you the one because I've talked to several founders, and some of them, it's late nights, when they're not working on their doctorate or whatever they have going on, they're still banging away something. And others, it was, did it a cocktail napkin. That's one of the things I want to talk to you about too, because it was a
cocktail napkin, and it was pulling in a lot of favors and borrowing money and begging my wife to let me do this. And just a lot of R&D, a lot of testing things out, a lot of trying different designs, different projection functions,
Study
And
grouping.
for some reason, each design, each prototype I made was worse than the one before it, until I finally made one that worked. And thank goodness, because I was down to my last dollar.
How did you know that was the one? How did you know that was the right design?
It looked great. So what happened was I really just wanted it to be like a tube. Like every television show and every movie I've ever seen, when somebody beams into a place, they beamed into like a tube or into a circle. Like you look at even from, you look at Star Trek and they're standing on these circular, Star Wars, Star Trek. And then like even most recently with like Silicon Valley, I don't know if you have seen
that show.
The owner. Right. So there was one scene in one episode where they beamed the Huli owner into what looked like a tube. And for me, that was the most realistic version of like a holoportation display I'd ever seen, because it wasn't working and like it was glitching and it was funny. And so I designed my prototypes after that. And I got a chance to tell Mike Judge that in a podcast, by the way. I got to tell him that in a podcast when I beamed into a proto into the podcast. And I got to tell him that your joke, your writing in a sitcom was the inspiration for me to actually do this for real. So I got to beam into a podcast and tell Mike Judge that his crazy ideas actually became a real company.
Interesting. It's so funny. I talk to a lot of founders too, and so many of them actually watch that show. And if those of you who don't, you should definitely check it out. Silicon Valley's.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so great.
Hilarious, but also I think there's a lot of value there. Some of it's a little overblown and whatever, but it does give you a nice little slice of some things to consider, right? And so with that show, do you identify with any of the characters on it or any of the struggles that they face? I'm assuming probably all of them.
Struggles. Yeah. I mean, I don't identify with any of the, I identify with the problems, the struggles, raising money is really important when you're starting up a company, because you have to afford inventory and R&D and personnel, overhead, rent. Everything costs money. And so that is a challenge. Certainly finding this is a brand new technology. Nobody had heard of anything like this before. Sure. So getting people to leave their jobs and come work with me doing this crazy idea of beaming people places. And so there you have to get lucky. And I got really, really lucky finding the right partners at the right time. And I'd gone through 2 or 3 rounds of terrible partners, people who were pretenders or users. All of a sudden I met some really important people that helped change the trajectory of where this company was going. Good.
And that's something I love to stress and talk about, because I think a lot of people outside looking in, they go, oh, there's a company, they're doing something cool. It must have been easy, right? But I think a lot of people don't understand that, especially for someone like you, where I'm sure you had a lot of conversations where you go, hey, I've got a company where we're going to be in the hologram business. And you just get a blank look from someone, and you can just see the wheels turning where they're like, I can't wait for this meeting to be over, because it sounds like you're blowing smoke and mirrors quite literally or whatever, right? Yeah,
because people, they hear the word hologram and they think of Tupac or Elvis, or they think of Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, or they think of a movie science fiction special effect. They think of it as entertainment. They think of it as a novelty. But what we've done is we've turned it into a real technology. The technology, we're an honest to God platform that is the first world's only spatial computing platform that doesn't require you to wear anything or download anything. It's not VR, it's R. It's real. Like you walk into the room and it's there. And I don't know if you can really tell through this platform that we're communicating on. But when you see it in person, it's like Howie is in the room. It's like whatever the content is there. And for me, I didn't want it to look like a hologram. I didn't want it to look like this kind of special effect. I really wanted to make it look like you were there, because when you appear like you're physically there, the level of engagement goes way up. The level of interactivity and honest conversation happens best when you're actually sharing the same space at the same time.
I agree.
Which is why when you go to a courtroom, they almost require you to be there. Like they don't let Zoom witness testimony because there's a lot of, fraud in that. But when you beam into it, then you can really create the effect of true presence, which is ultimately what we wanted to do.
Right. Well, and how much do they say that, 80% of communication is body language? And so if you're actually, I'm assuming, able to get a full view of someone's body and their expressions in their hands, and you can only do so much within a limited space, especially when it's unnatural, right? Where I'm trying to stay within frame. Now, if I was within your technology, I agree. I think it would completely revolutionize the way that we interact and we communicate.
Yeah. Well, and also think about how, giving presentations. I can replace your business travel. All of a sudden, now you don't have to jump on a plane, fly across the country or across the world to do a 30-minute panel or a keynote or a presentation or a lecture. Beam you in, you do your thing, you beam out. Exactly. You're home in time to play with your kids at dinner time. So.
Exactly. It's genius. It really is. So couple basic questions for you. Why the name Proto Hologram? Where did that come from? What's the meaning behind it, if any?
Yeah, at the end of the day, 200 years from now, 500 years from now, this will be a very common norm. I think even 2 or 3 years from now, there's going to be other players in the game. We've inspired some additional technologies that may not have existed if not for Proto physically, planting our flag and saying, okay, we've done the research, we've done the hard work, we've spent the money, we've built the platform, and now all of a sudden, all of these other companies are creating their entire businesses around us. So we thought Proto means the first of its kind. Proto star is born. What Proto means original. Whenever we do something, we're always the first to do it. We beam a teacher into Oxford University to give a guest lecture. So we protoed somebody in. They were the first person to do that. And
you guys are the first to beam an astronaut onto the International Space Station, correct? Pretty crazy.
No. Yeah, no. Well, one day.
Well, I thought you guys did that. That's on your website now, or an astronaut. You beamed someone.
Oh, we've definitely worked with astronauts. We've beamed astronauts to do. We've worked with SpaceX and NASA astronauts, but we've never beamed anybody up to the space station. Although it would be a dream come true, because I've got technology built into your iPhone right now. We have an app that you can just capture your image, and you could beam it into any one of our devices, whether it's the large one or whether it's a tabletop unit. So I would love to beam an astronaut from the space station down to Earth.
Got you. I thought you guys had already done that, or that you had someone who had been on the International Space Station and they had done some type of communication with the Proto Hologram. That's my mistake.
No. Although that does sound like a lot of fun.
I think so too. I'd seen a little bit on your website. Our founder series is starting to blow up. We've got a couple different founders that are going to be on, and I think you're all in such different fields and so many different areas. It's very interesting to see. A couple other quick questions for you. So we had talked about Proto Hologram in the name, and sort of your journey, how you had said that you had went and raised a bunch of money, or had taken on partners. At what point did you have accountants and lawyers involved? When did you know that was the right step?
Yeah, one of the first employees at Proto is an accountant. I think my first 2 employees were an accountant and a lawyer. The lawyer came on real fast. Again, I had no money. So this was a true believer who said, you know what, we'll worry about that later. Let's get you started. So he built out all the documents, contracts, created an LLC for me, all the things, all the stuff. Yeah. Filed everything. Of course, I paid whatever hard costs were required, but he saved me, goodness, tens and tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure. So when you guys first started, did you start as an S corp or a C corp or a sole prop? That was sort of all in his hands.
It was an LLC, and then as soon as we started raising some money, then we flipped it into a corporation.
Gotcha. So, and I'm assuming that's been part of your journey. Because my next question is: Are you guys publicly traded? Have you IPO'd? Is that something that you're looking towards in the future?
Not a publicly traded company, although we've raised quite a bit of money through private investors, VCs, and celebrities like my buddy Howie here, and Paris Hilton, and Lil Wayne, and we've got lots of amazing investors. Tim Draper was really the first person to put in a significant amount of money into Proto. Tim Draper famously got Elon Musk started with SpaceX and Tesla, and he's invested. He was the founding investor in Coinbase and Twitch and Skype, and he is a founding investor in hundreds of really, really amazing companies. And so we cold called him. I cold called Tim Draper, and this was like 4 or 5 months into the pandemic in 2020. So everybody was locked down. He jumped on a plane and came over to see me, and I beamed him from one side of the room to the other. And I'll put a hologram of Tim Draper on in the background while I'm talking to you. So here's Tim Draper.
Yeah, so my audience can who you're talking about.
Tim Draper. Yeah. So here's Holo Tim Draper. He took one look at his hologram and said, "Okay, I can now see into the future. If this company goes well, how good can it go?" And that's sort of where how he determines whether or not he wants to invest in a company is what's the sky's the limit? How great can this idea go? And so you can see that in a lot of his investments. They're really big. He gets a lot of really big companies started. So thank goodness for Tim Draper. He's come back in every one of my rounds, but not a publicly traded company. Yeah, it's private, and one day I think an IPO would be really great for me and my investors.
That's amazing. It's funny you mentioned Tim Draper, and maybe in circles we run in, he's very famous. I know of a lot of the companies that he's actually gotten into and helped start up, and he's sort of kind of infamous almost for being able to sort of peek around the corner into the future. And you had said that you had said that you had cold called him, and I believe that's something highly pivotal as a founder and CEO, and understanding when you got to take on partners and who do you reach out to, right? That's like your big, I don't want to call it your big solution, but kind of, right? The people who can pour gas on the fire. Part of that, though, I believe, is your discretion as a founder. And we had talked about how you had made some choices earlier on with bad partners. How did you know Tim was the right fit for you, right? Because I'm assuming you had gotten to that point once you cold called him, you're like, this is the guy we need. I know we need him. How did you, obviously through trial and error, you reach that decision, but making sure it's the right fit for you. Can you talk about that for maybe our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. Tim's a visionary. Tim gets it. Tim can see 8, 10, 20 years into the future. He's also a man of means. And so he can offer a lot of opportunity as well as inspiration. And so that's what we did. So when I called Tim, it was strategic, but it was also, I got lucky too. I think with anything, whether it's a sale, whether it's getting new listeners, I think there's a mixture of hard work and luck, and there's 3 or 4 things that go into a recipe for success.
Sure.
And it all has to happen in the right way.
I agree. I think, and that's a lot of why I do this. I have several companies of my own. I'm in the music industry and the jewelry industry and tech now with blockchain and different things that we're doing. But it's something that I like to stress, not only in my personal life, but hopefully to our listeners. I hope they get it. A lot of this, how you said luck, a lot of that is reaching out and making sure that you have, something actionable, something solid. something where you're being proactive with whatever the company is or whatever it is that you're trying to grow before you start pulling people into that, right? And so I think a lot of people get scared not knowing when that is, or they spend too much time. I'm not someone that like sells these courses or anything like that. And so, and I'm not knocking any people who do or go that route, but I think a lot of people almost are afraid to sort of cut the strings of, watching people do it and watching these sort of interactions and just go do it and reaching out to, people in the industry that they're in or helping them get started along the way.
Oh yeah.
But
absolutely.
But that was something else too I'd wanted to touch on with you. So you had sort of reached out and contacted Tim, and then you guys started working together in a collaborative way. Do you have any other dream collaborations? Because you work with a lot of artists. Are there any inventors, investors, people that you want to work with in the future?
I'm inspired by creative people. I know, this company is built around technology, but you need dreamers in order to make this thing happen. Collaborating with Howie is great. I get to talk to him every day. He cold called me. When he invested in Proto, it was about 2 years ago when I opened up my DMs on Instagram and I saw Howie was like, "Hey, this is great. I can use this for him, it's a medical device." He's like, I can be places. And for those of you who don't know who Howie, is, he's a well-known germaphobe, and he's got several other,
OCD,
OCD. He's got some medical things that he would like to use Proto for. So he'll beam in and he'll do something and he'll beam out rather than getting on a plane and being in front of a room full of people. So Paris Hilton, who you saw a moment ago as a hologram, she cold called me as well. She said, "I'm starting a media company, 1111 Media. This would be perfect to round out all of my technology investments." And she's invested in crypto and NFTs and AR and VR. And we are a nice addition to her portfolio. And she's become incredibly collaborative. She's fun. She's super smart. And she's also very well connected. So there's just so many people. I couldn't list them all. But every day I wake up and something new happens here, and it's a gift.
That's awesome. That's awesome to see, and I'm glad to hear it. It's something that it makes you think, when you had first started this journey, if you could have envisioned this, that was one of my other questions, would you have taken this journey on after everything that you've gone through up into this point? Because obviously you're in I don't want to call it the honeymoon phase, but things are going, hopefully, I'm assuming, over there, right?
No, I'm past the honeymoon. No, the honeymoon is over. Let's get that straight. Okay. It's this company is so far beyond what I could have ever dreamed. I'm in a room, I'm in a showroom. I've got all my technologies here, but I've got a lot of my partners and my collaborators and my colleagues. They're all here staring at me right now, but it's because of them. I had an idea, and my idea we've already looped beyond my idea several times. I mean, the artificial intelligence, live holoportation, pre-recorded canned playback for marketing in stores and in malls and in fashion shows. We're doing so many things that I'd never even thought were real. I watch a lot of television and film, and I do get inspired by filmmakers and writers, producers and directors, and it's their ideas that I thought, what if it could be done? If you've ever seen The Time Machine, the camera swings around in the film, and there is a projection of a man behind a panel of glass in the New York Public Library somewhere in the future, and he's hologram, and he's an all-knowing AI superhuman. And I thought, wow, that would be really cool if we could do that. So half of Proto's employees are software engineers. And I thought, what if we could do that for real? And they said, okay, let's get to work. And they're making it happen. So I am, again, one of the luckiest people in the world who gets to work with some of the smartest, most creative engineers and producers. And yeah,
that's amazing.
Super
Not, maybe this dates me again, but it's almost like you're making Ask Jeeves a person all over again. You're actually like bringing him back into the forefront. I mean, it sounds literally like, or Tony Stark's, I forget what he called it, Jarvis.
So you could walk up to any of our displays. I have an AI Howie in there. You can talk to him. It sounds like him. He could speak any language. You could communicate with him. He can communicate with you. It's like having a conversation with him. It is him. It is so real. And of course, he would have to approve that in advance. Don't get me started with, obviously there's a lot of issues surrounding AI. People are nervous about it. And is it going to take jobs? I think it actually benefits people. It helps people. It's an incredibly collaborative tool when used properly. And so that's how Proto uses it.
I'd agree. And that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. And you've really almost answered my question. I was going to ask you, what do you think is the future of your industry? But it sounds almost as if it's modernizing and replacing essentially our old broadcast systems, our way of consuming how this stuff's broadcast to us.
I think Proto technology in one form or another will be embedded in all of our lives, from boardrooms into the living room. I think that this isn't just another display in your house. I think Proto will be your main hub for your entertainment, your education, information. And you can see it in 2D or in spatial, 3-dimensional volumetric projection, which is much more lifelike and real, more engaging, interactive. And so that's sort of the future. It's VR without the headset. Not everybody wants to walk around with glasses on or headsets on or hold their phone up so they could see the AR through the other side. This is very realistic. And the displays will change over time. The form factor will change. It'll morph. Hardware will shift. And the price will get driven way down. And I think at that point, you're going to see a huge spike in how we scale.
Yeah. That was one of the things I was going to ask you too with, I'm sure you're aware with NVIDIA and a lot of the things that are going on in the tech sector. I'm assuming you see this becoming something that's in, like you said, everywhere, essentially every home across the world. This will replace the TV, I'm assuming, or that's the hope at least.
Well, TVs already are going away. I don't know anybody under 30 who owns a television set. Everybody's watching on their iPads or on their phones, or it's
sure.
Yeah, I do think that this replaces a big. I don't think people are going out there buying TV sets as much in the future. Sure. I think there's Apple Vision Pro has revolutionized the way people are using their VR. Yeah. It's great. I love that kind of stuff. By the way, if you have a Vision Pro, that capture technology that it has where it captures your face can be used as the camera to beam you into any one of our devices. So you could be walking down the street with your Vision Pro on, and you could be beaming into 100 of our Proto devices in malls, museums, airports, onto stages, anywhere, hospitals, universities. Pretty wild stuff. So we like to combo up with other technologies.
And that was something I wanted to touch on really quickly with you, because I came across you on TikTok, actually, and just my TikTok is kind of scattered because I sort of use it for fun and music promotion. But I had seen you doing a live, and it was instant when it clicked. I was like, this is amazing. This is like the bleeding edge of where I got it, right? Like I immediately saw it. And it had made me wonder, what does it take to get to this point? And one of my questions for you is really, what's one of your biggest takeaways as a CEO from all of this, right? Because I'm sure you did not set out to become the CEO of the first holographic projection company, in the world, right? And so, what has that been like?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so that's why I put my parents up here, and I'll show you. This is, I just want to be clear about just how how real this looks. So like my parents live 3,000 miles away from me. They're still with me, thank goodness, but not everybody has their parents all the time. Their feet appear as if they're standing on that floor. Their shadows appear on the back wall. It's like they're in this room with me. My parents live 3,000 miles away from me. They're in their 80s. My children, I've got 3 children under 10. Try getting a 4-year-old or a 2-year-old to communicate with an 80-year-old over the phone, and not just communicate, but truly connect with that person. Impossible. It's just impossible. Maybe you get them for 5 or 10 minutes and they sing happy birthday, and then it's just, Right. So I thought, what if we could beam into each other's homes? What if we could beam into each other's lives? What if? And that's really that's why I'm doing this. It's not just about me. You shouldn't have to be Tupac. You shouldn't have to be a millionaire. You shouldn't have to be somebody of great means. You shouldn't have to be a celebrity to beam somewhere as a hologram. It should be, this should be a way to communicate with people in a much more engaging way, even when you can't be there in person.
I love it. It's genius. You spoke about family, and it's something I wanted to touch on too, especially being the CEO. You mentioned you have a wife and some kids, and shout out to them. I'm assuming, especially
shout out to my kids.
Yeah, shout out to your wife and shout out to the kids. Especially, I'm assuming there's a lot of road time. I'd imagine it, maybe not necessarily at this point, but at some point there has been.
I beam places now. I haven't really had to go on many business meetings. I'm in a position now where I've got a lot of these devices in different showrooms and different offices. We're in malls, we're in airports, we're in like theme parks. When somebody has a meeting with me, I don't Zoom. I Proto. I beam in. It looks like I'm just standing on the other side of a panel of glass.
Okay.
But yes, the first few years, a lot of road time for sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you short, but okay. So talk to us about that then, the finding the balance, right? Because you said in the beginning it was hard, and I'm sure it is, and I'm sure there are a lot of founders that are in that position right now, and the road seems long. What's that like, right? Picking the right partner, or can you even speak on that, or any advice that you can give them?
Yeah, the most important thing you can do is find the right partners, and also surround yourself with people a whole lot smarter than you. So I have done that successfully, and it took me 100 times to do it. But every single person at Proto is so perfect for the position that they're in. I've also made sure that everybody has a voice. I don't say this is the direction of the company and you're doing this and you're doing that. Everybody owns a piece of this company. They all have something at stake here, and we're doing this together. When you create something for the first time, or whether you just want to do something better than something that already exists, you have to find people who are as passionate about this as you are. For me, I've got 3 human children, and I have Proto. I have 4 children. I've birthed this company, but I'm no more passionate about this company than anybody else who works here, because we're all in on it. And so when you want to become an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are just taking the weekends off, I did my 40 hours. They're not the right partner for you. This is a 24/7 thing.
Sure. I'd agree with that. I'm a big advocate. I don't believe that any employee should care about the company more than the founder or the CEO. But I think it is something that having a company where it's a culture of family, and especially when you guys are striving to do something like how you guys are, that's never been done before. I think being aware of your legacy and your culture and what you're leaving behind and what you're going to be remembered for and the way you interacted with people is huge. And that's something I'm glad you spoke on that, because that was going to be my next question. What do you think is Proto's legacy, your legacy? What do you hope it to be? What do you hope the future of the company to be?
Yeah, the company is taking us into the future. People come in here all the time and they say, "Oh my God, this is the future." I need it to be the now. This must happen right now. We are evolving at a rapid pace. My legacy will be, if I just want to, kick the ball a little bit further. I want to make it so it's easier for people to communicate in a much more natural, emotional, and physical way. If I can do that, then I've done my job. And it's for those who, take over, or maybe even a competitor. Maybe a competitor gets inspired by something that we're doing and figures out a better way. Of course, they'd be heartbroken that it's not us doing it, but I will take some pleasure in knowing that something I did inspired something to happen that made people better, either better at business, better at communication, better at engaging. And I think that's just very, terrific.
Now, do you see your role as Proto Hologram is your life's work, or do you someday hope to be in the same position as Tim Draper? Do you think that what you do now would even allow you to do that?
Okay, so this is a lot of daydreaming now.
Sure.
I typically don't like to do that,
Sure.
but I guess every time, when you buy a lottery ticket, there's a, there is still a little bit of daydreaming before you scratch it off. So yeah, my daydream is to be able to help lots of other young entrepreneurs, founders, realize their dreams, realize their goals. I think I've got a pretty good sense of things. I use common sense. I like to believe that I am a good judge of people. So I definitely love if I were in a position to help other entrepreneurs, I would definitely want to help them out with some kind of an investment, whether it's financial or or more collaborative. Either way.
Sure. Obviously, not a lot of people are going to necessarily hit that point, right? What's your biggest piece of advice, if any, to the young CEO, young founder out there that's just getting involved in something? And we're talking anything from tech to donuts to, makeup and all that stuff along the way. So it's not applicable to everyone, but if you had one piece of general advice for those just starting out or halfway.
I really think it's about picking the right idea and surrounding yourself with way smarter people, and people who have done this before. Ed Guinness, we were talking about Edward Guinness, CTO, Doug Barry, COO. By the way, not just those two guys. I've got 50 of those. I mean, everybody who's in their positions have all done successful things. Proto is my first successful venture. I have been an entrepreneur several times and I've done okay. This has been remarkable. I've never seen anything like this before. But Edward Guinness has, he's built technology companies and sold them. Doug Barry has done an incredible job. He was one of the founding investors at Pandora and EA Electronic Arts. And, so finding the right people who believe in you, who believe in your message, your idea, and building the company collaboratively, I would say is one of the most important things that I could say.
I was going to ask you about that. As far as splitting that role with Doug, I'm assuming he does a great deal. And is it something that you try to work towards? I'm assuming your strengths, because you seem very personable and you're able to articulate the company and the vision of the company and the technology very well. Do you and Doug sort of more so collaborate then on the back end of things, or that's sort of your role because that's your nature?
Yeah, we talk every day. Yeah, it's Doug is COO, so he focuses on operations, day to day, the daily operating of the business. Edward Guinness is the CTO, so he's in charge of the technology, the software. So he's got 20 or 30 software engineers who answer to him. So he kind of envisions what the roadmap of software and technology looks like. Every 4 to 6 weeks, another software update, just like on your iPhone or just like on your Tesla, your piece of hardware has software built into it so that it continues to evolve with the company. So that's what he's in charge of. And yeah, for me, you saw me on the TikTok. I don't know if I was having a good day or a bad day.
You look like you're doing great.
Okay.
You look like you're killing on the engagement. The comments are going crazy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, again, I think I'm going to just reiterate the fact that I would be lucky to have a job here if I wasn't the founder of the company. So I'm thrilled that I get to wake up every morning and get in my car and come over here, spend my whole day here. Then I get to go home and then be with my family until I pass out and I start it all over again.
Sure. I appreciate that. I think it's very humble of you to say that. I'm sure there's a lot more that goes into what you do beyond just that. But I'm glad to hear that. So you ended up in your guys' roles because you knew that was the right fit. It sounds like for all of you. You knew right away.
Yeah, we right away, right from the very beginning. Now, I was doing this for about a year before I met any of them, maybe more. So it was just me for a while, and I built that first prototype that I was telling you about, the one that finally worked. And I would cold call every single trade show and convention and live event, anybody who would let me through the door with that thing. What is this thing? And I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for free. We'll beam people in. And it's really hard to explain what this thing is when you've never seen it before. But anyway, I got, the LA Comic-Con, and I did this thing called the Saturn Awards. And all of a sudden people started congregating around it. It became a beacon. People would walk by, stop, and then congregate and stay there for a long time. And then at Los Angeles Comic-Con 2019, I just put up a sign next to the Proto device that said, "Do you want to be a hologram? Form a line here." Line wrapped around the convention floor 2 times over. People waited in line an hour just to beam from here to here to get that cool photo of them as a hologram. And while they were standing in line, we're exchanging business cards. We're exchanging ideas. Somebody who was in that line works here today. She was one of my first employees. And it's great because now all of a sudden you can start creating use cases together. You can start. Now it's not just me. Now it's me and this guy. And now we go to the next one. And then somebody else, almost like, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or you name it, like any of these movies where it kind of starts out with, one idea and then you just kind of grow a group together.
Yeah. Blossoms.
Blossoms.
Yeah, I can see that. I saw that with, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but the Free Water company, the CEO, Josh Clifford's, I consider him a friend, and I'd reached out to him. Oh. And it was literally through his social media a number of years ago. He was one of our first episodes. Sorry, I'm like leaning back and I just realized my audio is probably awful. But it's something I think when you have the right idea and you know that you're onto something, and being able to share that with others is pivotal. And we're going on almost an hour. It's almost 3 times what a normal episode would run. And I don't want to dominate your time. And I know we're both very busy. But I did want to ask you just a couple quick questions before I let you go.
Sure.
Number one, besides your marriage or your children, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment, either in this space or through any? What are you most proud of?
Besides my marriage and my children and Proto, because
if it's Proto related, we'd love to hear it.
Well, it is. By far, Yeah. This is everything. I'm almost 50. I've started and I've done so many. I've worked. I was a salesman selling knives door to door. I used to sell newspapers. I would sell radio commercials. I would sell yellow page ads. I worked at Wendy's. I've had all the jobs. I've had all the things. Started the podcast network, started an ad agency, came up with a couple of inventions. Have you ever thought of an idea? Well, I would get my ideas patented and then I would, sell off so for me, Proto is the outside of my family. It's the greatest thing. It is my family. Like my wife gave birth to my 3 children. I don't know what that feeling is like to actually give birth to a person. I feel like this is as close to that, because this creation, I came up with the idea of it and I put it out into the world and I'm watching it grow up. And all of a sudden now we've got 50, 60 something people who work here who pay their mortgages, who feel financially secure enough to start having children of their own. And I mean, it's really, really great seeing that other people are having wonderful lives because of this.
Building a future. I know exactly what you're talking about. And when you talk about birthing something, I'm obviously a man and I've never given birth to anything, but I think a lot of founders directly relate with that, right? Where you're like, I created this idea, I put it out into the world, I've kept it from harm, it's experienced some harm, I've kept things from killing it, I've fed it everything that I have, and look at it go now. And so I think that is an amazing feeling, and I'm glad that you shared that with our listeners. You had mentioned the patent process, and we're getting short on time, and I don't want to keep you, but you had mentioned that, and I think intellectual property is massive. I think intellectual property ownership is massive. Can you speak about that? Why you went the patent process? What that's like? Anything that you can share on that?
Totally. I don't think it's as necessary today as maybe it used to be. However, because I think what we do really well isn't really protected by patents. I think it's we have got these incredible software engineers, and we're just building years of space between me and anybody between Proto and anybody who comes after us. So, but go if you have an idea, if you have the means to do it, if you can patent it, I'd say definitely. But do your research. Don't get ripped off. Don't do any of those. Do you have an idea? Patent your thing. Don't do any of those. Like, I would go to a legitimate patent attorney and do your research. Find out what patents. Yeah, I mean, like, interview them like you're interviewing an employee. Find out what patents have you. Show me the patents that you've worked on. That and what are they? And do your research that way. And if you're on a budget, then your choices will be more limited. But for sure, if there's if there's any piece of advice I can give you, is definitely interview whoever it is that's going to be working on any piece of your company, especially your patent.
Okay, excellent advice. Very short, straightforward question: did you go to college? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I did. Nothing I studied in college applies to what I'm doing today. I went to school for radio. But I mean, you don't need to go to school for radio or communications. I had a radio show. Really, I went to college so I can have my own college radio show on Sunday nights from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And only people passing through the parking lot were able to hear my show. But it really gave me the ability to kind of come up with some ideas. But I think if you want to go to college, you should go to college. I'm not like some entrepreneurs who don't think college is. I think college is a very good idea.
No,
for the right person.
Sure. And
if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, like if there are certain professions you can't have. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you could take some business classes. But I don't know that you need to get a 4-year or higher degree in college for that.
Sure. I'm assuming you have a 4-year degree though. You graduated.
No, as a matter of fact, I have several smaller degrees. I've got a 2-year degree and I've got 2 trade degrees.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. Really quick. I had talked to Owen Phillips from your company, and he had mentioned we're going to delay the airing of this episode. Usually we do 2 a week, but he had mentioned that you've got some large, potentially celebrity news. Do you want to touch on that, or should I save that for the very end? Because I've got probably one more question I was going to ask you.
Large celebrity news. Did he tell you what the news was? Did he give you?
He had teased it. I put my phone down, so I've got about 100 different texts coming in.
Huh. Large celebrity news.
Let me see. He said, let's see. If after this week he can mention something new opening this weekend involving a celebrity. We have some celebrity news breaking Friday. If your episode drops after that, he can mention it. I don't.
Doing?
I don't know. Well, and
Wait.
so I'm in the process of recording an album.
Oh, the Jewel. Oh, yeah, for sure, Jewel. Yeah. No, we could talk about that. She did announce it. I don't know if this is what he's talking about, but yeah, the musician Jewel.
Yeah.
We're doing so. Yeah, Jewel is using. Here, I'll put her on while I'm talking about her. Jewel, the musician is using a Proto inside of Crystal Bridges Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas. It is one of Earth's most gorgeous art galleries and museums. And Jewel has customized an art exhibition called The Portal. And it's using holograms of Jewel. It's using drones by Kendall Musk, Elon Musk's brother. He's got the whole drone company and lots of other technologies all kind of coming together to form the world's most interactive, immersive art exhibition. I'm excited. I'm actually flying out on Thursday to check it out in person.
And you said, where can people check that out? Is it going to be beamed online?
No, you have to go to the museum to see it. But you could read about it right now if you typed in Jewel, the Portal art exhibition. But it's in Bentonville, Arkansas. And if you live anywhere around it, it's one of our most beautiful, just incredibly gorgeous art galleries anywhere in the country. And so you go there and you can't miss us.
That's amazing. Good luck with that. That sounds like that's going to be super, super cool to check out. I know we're running a little bit short on time. I would love if you have time sometime in the future, maybe to have you on again, and we could maybe get into some of the details more specifically of Proto if you guys would like, or even do a check-in
I'd
as
love
time goes on. I for one just appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be here with us and share some of your journey and what's gone on with you and what led you to where you are.
Oh, I'm happy. I feel like, thank you for having me on. I really love what you do. I love the idea of your show. I think it's important. Maybe next time I'll beam in. I'll beam into your studio instead of doing it through this process. Yeah. I can just, maybe my hologram can be on your countertop there.
I would love that. We could get, they're like laughing at me. We could get the guys to set it up because I'm not the one to handle the tech end of it, but I would absolutely love that if we could do it. But
we probably could.
Yeah, we definitely should. David, right. I want to just extend my appreciation to you, to being on the show, your team. I don't know if there's anyone that you wanted to shout out while you're on here or not, or anything you wanted to say, but I'd give you the last word if you'd like it.
Yeah, I shout out to everybody. Okay. Everybody who works with me knows how much I care about them. I will say this though, if you and I'm saying this to I'm extending this offer to you and also to all of your listeners or anybody that you work with. We do have showrooms around the world. I'm in Los Angeles, but we have showrooms in Nashville and Las Vegas and Miami, and then outside of the country in Vietnam and the Philippines and London. And if you want to see this technology for yourself, either in one of our showrooms or in one of our installations somewhere, shoot me, find me on TikTok or Instagram and send me a message. And I'd love to do a demonstration for you. Show you the technology in person.
It's funny. We kind of tried to rush this episode because I'm a recording artist. I do a bunch of different things, but I've experienced some success with that. And I'm going back into my album mode. I had released a project and it went gold a couple of years ago. And so we've got some traction, right? So, shout out my team and whatever in the music stuff. But I'm going down to the Lovers and Friends Festival in one day in Las Vegas. And there's going to be everyone from TLC to T-Pain to T.I. to, it's huge. I think they've got
if they have the letter T in their name, they're going to be
them.
There, right?
Yeah, them. Yeah, exactly. Rick Ross is there, Jeezy, all these guys, huge. You've got Carrie Hilson, shout out everybody. It's too many people for me to shout out. And I come from the hip hop world. And so that's something that I probably maybe do too much of. But I am going to be in Las Vegas for probably a week here coming up, and I would be highly interested to see this stuff.
Oh, sure.
In person.
In Las Vegas, we have a unit at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club at the Link.
Okay.
So that's open to the public too. But yeah, let me know when you're going, and I'll let them know you're coming.
I'll hit you up on Instagram.
Okay.
That's usually easiest for me. I'll just DM you on Instagram and I'll get you there. Perfect. Well,
Thanks.
David, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. My listeners, if you guys have any questions for us or for David, feel free to get in contact. We're going to be streamed on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google, Pandora, Spotify, all that. Check us out. Check us out at The Millionaire Millennial on Instagram, as well as stackbanks.official on Instagram. David, you guys, what are your socials? I forgot off the top of my head.
At Proto Hologram on everything. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. David, thank you so much. And we'll be looking forward to talking to you in the future.
You got it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks.